Let's talk about miniatures. I've been known to do some role-playing.
Guys, welcome to another episode of Miniature Mashup. You know, there are a lot of chariots out there, chariot miniatures. D&D, there's certainly a reason to use chariots. They're a great stable platform. They allow heavier races that might not be comfortable on the back, or oddly shaped races that might not be comfortable on the back of a horse, or the horses might not be comfortable with them on their backs, to get around quickly. Games Workshop puts out a range of chariots. They range between $50 and $70, somewhere in that. They're extremely expensive, and they're very race specific. If you want just sort of a normal human-looking chariot, there's really not that many options. Other companies put out 28mm chariots as well, but you're going to pay at the very least 11 or 12 bucks. I'm going to show you today how to make a nice-looking chariot. I'm going to start with this bottle of melatonin. I have a little trouble getting to bed at night. But you can use any kind of pill bottle that's a similar size. This will work nicely for a 28mm figure. I'm going to peel as much of this label off by hand as I can, but I'm also going to pour some boiling water and some simple green detergent on here. And that'll get off about 99% of the sticker. All the paper part of the sticker will come off. But unfortunately, there is still going to be some glue residue, and you don't want to try to paint over that or work with that if you can help it. So a little glue gun or other solvent will take that off with a rag. And I'm just going to wipe the bottom part of this because I'm only going to be using the bottom of this bottle. So that's the only part we have to clear. Now I'm using this little 28mm miniature here to get an idea of the scale and the size of the chariot I want to make before I cut it. And I'm just measuring this out, and I'm also going to bisect it along the bottom about a third of the way in, just to sort of mark where I'm going to cut a pattern into it, and I want to make sure that it's symmetrical, as you can see. So I'm marking it along the bottom, and then I'm also going to mark it horizontally as well across here. I'm just sort of sketching out what we want our chariot to look like. Now I'm going to come at this with a utility knife and some heavy wire cutters, and as well as a hacksaw. This is a nice thick bottle. You'll find that many of these bottles are very tough, which is excellent because it means the miniature is going to be nice and solid. You can see how thick that plastic is on these pill bottles, and it's a pretty universal pill bottle, so anything this sort of white plastic is probably going to yield similar results. It can be a little tough to work with, but I think it's worth it. And once we've cut ourselves out a chariot shape using our heavy-set wire clippers, always cut a little bit and continue to measure it. Keep comparing that to the miniature. And bear in mind that I am going to put some wood in the bottom to cover it up to make it look a little more authentic, to add a little wood to it, so any miniature in there is going to stand a little bit higher than it is now. If it comes up to about its waist, that front guard comes up to the waist, then that's about right. That's about what we're looking for. Now we're going to do the metal portion of the chariot, sort of, I don't know if it's embossing, I don't know the term here. We're going to do that with hot glue, and so we're going to go all around the front. We're going to go around the edge, bottom and top, with our small hot glue gun. Try to be as neat as possible. Hot glue isn't exactly very forgiving because you have to constantly pump it by hand, so it's hard to get very, very straight lines, but we are going to try our best. And as you can see, we're going to curve around the side here to make it look as if there's a separate faceplate that was put on that's separate from the rest of the chariot. And this design is based off of Greek chariot design. I think if you put in Greek chariot, you'll see something very similar to this. Not too different from what you see in Ben-Hur, in the film Ben-Hur. I'm going to take some of these E6000 and some of these plastic jewel beads, which I use in many projects, and I'm gonna set them up in sort of a diamond pattern. We're not gonna put the squares flat across horizontally. They're actually going to be standing on the corner, and we're going to fill the front with these things. Just lots of E6000 and lots of little plastic gem beads like this going across. Chariots have a lot of advantages, especially in D&D. If you want to have a chariot for your party, one of the big advantages is it's a very stable platform to fire arrows off of, to fire bows from, as opposed to doing it on the back of a horse, which does require some special training and skill. If your DM wants to penalize you for shooting arrows off the back of a horse, he's well within his right to do so. Firing them off the back of a chariot, the penalty should at least be less, or not at all, because believe it or not, these chariots were very stable. Another reason for a chariot would be if you've got a race that's too large for a horse. Something like an ogre or a troll wants to make use of a mount. The mount will probably not accept a creature so large, but it might pull a chariot. A team might pull a chariot with an ogre on it. Here I am filling in a metal pattern on the sides with the hot glue gun, just to make it look like there's a little more metal work going into it here, just to fill in those gaps. And then we're going to put metal studs using the hot glue in between our jewel beads, and of course right now it looks very much like a birthday cake. It is hard to look at it and not think happy birthday to you, and this is not intimidating or has no place on a battlefield, but wait till we get some paint on it. When it's finished, the end product is quite different and doesn't look like a delicious pastry. Now I'm going to be cutting out some wheels here using quarters. Quarters are about the size we want, and I'm using foam, and I'm just tracing it out with a pen. I'm just pressing down nice and hard to get the good indentation with the pen, and you'll see I'm making 4. Now I'm not going to make 4 wheels, but in order to get the correct thickness and strength on our wheels, we're going to want to use 2 of these bits of foam, 2 of these foam wheels put together to make a single chariot wheel. And then I'm going to cut out 3 sections of the wheel, and I'm going to try to make them as even as possible, thinking sort of a steering wheel or a wheel on a ship. And we're going to cut all this out with scissors. Or we're going to cut all this out with our fine wire cutters. Scissors, a small pair of scissors, of course, will work just fine. Now we're going to make an axle for our chariot using a small wooden dowel, and I'm just going to make that even on both sides, and I'm going to anchor it using our small hot glue gun. You can't see the bottom of the chariot, so use plenty of hot glue gun. Doesn't matter what it looks like, just make sure it's nice and strong. I'm going to put nice amount of hot glue on there, and maybe even connect that a little bit to our hot glue that's already there, so we know we get a nice bond. Now each half of the wheel, I'm going to start by putting plenty of this glue stick. It's acid-free glue stick. And I'm going to apply that, and I'm going to squeeze them together like an Oreo, and I'm going to do my best to line up the holes I cut in, and then I'm going to weigh them down using some quarters, give them a little time to bond. I'm going to put the sort of front shaft of the chariot, which the harness and tack, I guess, part, and we're just going to work that same size dowel rod that we used for our axle. We're just going to work that underneath the axle, have it come out of the front. I have it nice and long now because I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to place it until I cut it, and we're just going to hot glue that into the axle. And I'm also going to use hot glue to go around the wheels, make them a little more round on the edges, and also to give them an even stronger bond together, so they are a very solid piece, single piece now of foam. Some of these thick craft wooden sticks, and I'm going to start putting them with E6000 into the chariot itself. We said we'd do it. Here I am doing it, because the bottom of the chariot does look very plastic and modern, as it is right now, and we want to cover that up, give it a more, make it look more like a wooden construction when it's painted. That'll look much better. putting the 6000 in and just pressing them down, cutting them in there to fit. We want to cover up as much of that as we can. It's a little trickier on the edges, not quite as neat looking, as tidy, but we're going to do our best. Now we're going to cut out the harness out of the same black foam we used to make our wheels. The difference is we're just going to use one layer of foam for this. This is going to go around our horses, and we're just going to hot glue that onto our horses. The shape we're using is sort of a long horizontal strip with a triangle in the center. We're just cutting this out of our foam. And we're going to put this on our horses with hot glue. And we're just going to use a single piece of foam for that. Then I'm going to put the wheels on the chariot with hot glue. And I'm going to put the entire chariot on our base, which is, of course, a lid off of a big box of raisins. I've talked about these in boxes of raisins in previous episodes and how nice the lids are. I'm sorry, 4 inches by 4 inches. I guess it is bigger than large. It's more like colossal, but that's fine for something that incorporates a vehicle and 2 horses. Now, these horses are both out of the Safari Horses tube. They're a little bit larger than the Terra horses. The Terra horses kind of looked lost. The Terra horses are actually very much to scale with 28 millimeter. But they looked a little small next to this chariot, so I went with the horses tube horses, which are a little pricier, but the paint jobs aren't really any better on the horses tube horses, as you'll see on this brown one. When you see his left side, right now you're looking at him kind of straight, he's kind of sloppy. Now we're gonna try to see what that harness looks like. Obviously, I'm gluing all of this, the chariot and the horses, to this plastic base. First with E6000 and then with a little hot glue to anchor them a little better. And now we're putting the harness on them. This foam harness is going on them just with hot glue, which is plenty. It's strong enough to make a nice bond. It's nice and cheap and easy to work with. And I'm just squeezing it onto them, holding it in place as the hot glue cures. I'm going to punch a little hole into the harness using just a bit of wire. I probably should have did this before I put it on, so learn from my mistakes and get that hole in there first. And we're just going to put a bit of rough twine into the harness to make it look like a rope. And pretty simple construction. Now I'm spreading PVA glue all over the base. And it's watered down PVA glue. I'm putting it all over our raisin lid base because we're going to put a little craft sand, as we do, to flock the base. After we hit this all in gray primer, we're going to begin putting our base coats down. I start with a very dark, deep midnight blue on the chariot. We're going for blue and silver. I decided on the chariot. Nice sort of neutral color. I suppose red is more traditional for chariots, but I decided to do blue and silver instead. I'm putting, of course, some brown. I think this color might actually be cinnamon on the wood inside the chariot. I'll be using the same color on the wheels, at least as a base coat, and the horses. I will be doing many, many thin layers of paint, and that's pretty much the way I do it. I'm starting with sort of a greenish blue on the ground, and we'll be working up from there, just lighter shades of green on top of that and yellow as we go outward. We're going to leave a shadow under the chariot, leaving that darker. I dry brushed sort of a yellowish color onto the horses and lighter color lemonade on top of that, giving them sort of a sickly look. They're just sort of yellow, and I will be leaving brown undertones here and there. Their manes, of course, will be black. I give them some spots to make them give a little pattern to their fur. I'm going for sort of a very neutral looking chariot, nothing too distinct. Doesn't look like it belongs to any particular race, simply because there are certainly a lot of chariots out there put out by Warhammer, but they're all very race specific, and I wasn't going for that with this because I don't know when I'll make another chariot. I'd like it to be more universal. I don't need to make a whole bunch of different chariots for different races. So we're going to dry brush some blue into the black hair on the horses to give it a little gleam to match the chariot. The harness, of course, is going to end up being black. The rope is going to be brown. Lastly, of course, I'll be making a driver for a chariot, and I'll be making him out of a Ulik miniature. He's one of Thor's foes. This is the one of the earlier Ulik miniatures. He might even be from one of the very first HeroClix Marvel sets. And I'm going to start by stripping him because this crappy latex paint they use is just caked in there, and it covers up so much detail, especially in the face. And I just dip it into some acetone, same acetone I've been using. I don't go through much of this stuff, although this will be the last time I use this batch of acetone. So if you remember which episode I poured this into this country crock container, that was all. I've been using the same acetone since then. But after this application, it's almost more paint than acetone at this point. It takes a while to get it off. I'm using the brush, but on the other hand, it is a lot milder than it usually is, so I don't have to worry about damaging the mini at all. Not that you really do with HeroClix too much, especially when they're thick like this guy. But anyway, that and a toothbrush will get that paint, that horrible paint, off. I'll also be dremeling in a spear from a Warhammer skeleton, because I bought a regiment of skeletons a long time ago, and here he is just next to the old paint job. Just stripped. It already looks so much better with the paint off. And I really, HeroClix, you're wasting money painting these minis. Just put them out in monochrome, and they look so much better, and you can save all that production time and money by applying that terrible paint. And here he is on a washer for a base, and with that Warhammer skeleton spear. And let's take a look at the finished product.